It's half an hour.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thanks for being here. Senator Wyden and I, over the past 6 months or so, have been working on a project that the two of us created to take a look at government waste. And it's sort of an ad hoc project just for the two of us. And we did it because we both believe very strongly in the possibilities of government. We believe that government does a lot of wonderful, good things that improves people's lives. But we also know that it is a big bureaucracy. The federal government is a big, unwieldy bureaucracy, and from time to time you run across areas of government waste, and we've been trying to target some of those areas. And so on that note, we have discovered something that is going on at the Department of Defense, a relatively small program run by Admiral Poindexter that is almost unbelievable. In fact, when you describe it to people, they say, well, this can't be the truth. I mean, obviously this can't be going on, but in fact it is. And let me describe it to you briefly and then have my colleague Senator Wyden describe it as well. In 3 days, there will become operative on the internet, stemming from the site of DARPA in the Department of Defense, something called the futures market. It's a futures market to predict future events in the Middle East. And the basis of it is apparently the Department of Defense believes, as they say when you'll read this when you go to the website, they believe that having the market system, people in the market system, betting or buying and selling futures contracts, they will be able to develop information about what might or might not happen in the Middle East in the future. So they're going to develop a program, and that program will buy and sell with individual investors futures contracts on a wide range of issues. And this is effectively a plan to bet on what might or might not happen in the Middle East. This betting parlor on the internet will include wagers, for example, as the examples on the internet site put up by the Department of Defense would include, will Mr. Arafat be assassinated? Will there be missile attacks from North Korea? Will the King of Jordan be overthrown, just as an example? And it will become effectively an internet casino so that individual investors can make bets on future events in the Middle East, and those predictive bets will then give intelligence, presumably, to the Department of Defense. I think this is unbelievably stupid. It's not only, it is, well, that is a gentle thing to say about a program that is so devoid of value. It combines the worst of all of our instincts, in my judgment. It is a tragic waste of taxpayers' money. It will be offensive to almost everyone. Can you imagine if another country set up a betting parlor so that people could go in, and it's sponsored by the government itself, people could go in and bet on the assassination of an American political figure or the overthrow of this institution or that institution? It is terribly wasteful in terms of wasting money. It is offensive, and it is, in my judgment, nearly useless. Let me just, in a couple seconds, tell you that we have internet sites. This is now on the internet, and you're welcome to go to it. And this site is DARPA, which is a Department of Defense agency. And what they have is this. They have this chart. It says predicting hostilities, and you can see on this chart that they say the market method of predicting hostilities is the best method. Much better than analysis reports, which I assume represents the CIA and traditional intelligence gathering. And if you go to the next page, you'll discover the next page is the policy analysis market. It's called PAM, and this is what they're creating. In PAM, you'll see it has an example of special event security on which futures markets would be established and futures contracts traded. And we'll show you, that chart shows you what this is saying on this site. And you'll see King Jordan overthrown, North Korea missile attack, U.S. recognizes Palestine, Arafat assassinated. These would be examples of what would be bet on, because although they call it futures, and you go to their website, you'll see they're talking about a futures market. Futures markets almost always deal with a commodity. Corn, wheat, sow bellies. No commodity here. This is betting. And so let me again say that I find this a tragic waste of the taxpayers' money. But more than that, I think it's offensive, and I think the Defense Department ought to stop it. Senator Wyden and I have written them a letter saying, stop this, and if you don't stop it, we intend to try to stop it in the appropriations process. Let me call on my colleague, Senator Wyden.
Well, Byron, thank you. And just to pick up for a minute, I mean, the idea of a federal betting parlor on atrocities and terrorism is ridiculous, and it's grotesque. It's a bizarre plan that we are describing today, and it is one that fritters away hard-earned dollars of our taxpayers, and it needs to be stopped immediately. Although this program, when you look on the website, is hidden behind language like, quote, using market-based techniques for avoiding surprise, unquote, the program's intent is clear. The federal government is encouraging people to bet on and make money from atrocities and terrorist attacks. Now, I sit on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and I can tell you without a doubt that there are real security threats to America that require a real response. But betting on bioweapons attacks isn't going to make America safer. And it's particularly true when you go to the website and you see that just about anybody can participate in this sick game. The Policy Analysis Market website, and this is an important point, says that all you have to do to become a trader is to create a username and put your money down. So it seems that terrorists even may be able to be protected as they play. The website assures bettors that DARPA is not going to have access to their identities or their funds. So we don't know the details. Maybe somebody else is going to get it, but it's not evident here. So the question is, why wouldn't terrorists just hop online and start betting if they could either mislead American authorities about their plans or make money to fund more Al-Qaeda operations? The website talks of having 10,000 traders by next January. You don't get the sense in this country that there are 10,000 experts on the Middle East at this point. And I'll tell you, as a member of the Intelligence Committee, I'm pretty concerned when you consider who some of those 10,000 traders might be. Now, DARPA says the project can save lives based on research in other fields, showing that markets can help to predict the future. But the evidence with respect to predicting the future by constructing markets is pretty sketchy at best. And getting into some kind of academic discourse misses the central point. The two of us believe that betting on terrorism is morally wrong. Now, the 9/11 report last week proved that the basics of communication and follow-through ought to be the country's primary weapon against terrorism. That this country has a long way to go in getting the basics down. And as far as we're concerned, we ought to get at the basics before we start going after these fictional scenarios. I realize that this is the Defense Department. The 9/11 report dealt with the intelligence community. But the real question is, what's a good way to use taxpayers' money? And creating office pools on atrocities that might help fund Al-Qaeda, and if terrorists bet on events that they know will happen and profit when they do, seems to us to be as wasteful as it is morally repugnant. Now, many of you know that for many months now I have been trying to fight the excesses of the Total Information Awareness Program. I wrote the law that now stipulates that the program can't go forward without congressional approval. But frankly, this program shows that DARPA still doesn't get the message behind the law that I wrote. And it's time now to defund this program. Senator L.Dorgan and I are moving today, first because registration for this program will start in a few days. In a few days, people can start actually registering for this program. It's designed to begin in the fall. And the two of us want, because the Senate would defund this program, the House would not in the defense bill, the two of us want to finally put the nail on the coffin of this ridiculous program. And The government ought to spend its tax dollars on concrete steps to find terrorism, not these pie-in-the-sky predictive scenarios. And I have met with the people at DARPA, Mr. Poindexter's boss now, on several occasions. I have tried to caution them with respect to some of these outlandish proposals. They do not seem to get the message, and that is why Senator Dorgan and I, as part of our effort to root out waste, thought it was particularly important to alert people to a program that is just about as wrong-headed as anything I have seen in my time in public service.
Ron, let me make one additional point. I serve on the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee. I have a great deal of admiration for the Department of Defense and the men and women who work there, and they do some very important things for our country. But it is the case, in my judgment, that this particular issue is a harebrained scheme that is both wasteful, useless, and offensive. And we need to stop it, in my judgment. We'd be happy to entertain questions.
Has any money been spent on this, federal money been spent on this program so far?
Here's the state of the financing up till this point. Let me give you the exact numbers. So far, DARPA has spent $600,000 on the policy analysis market. That's the PAM market, and they plan to spend $149,000, just about $150,000 more. But what particularly concerns us is the President has proposed spending $3 million to continue Future Map in the 2004 fiscal year, $5 million in 2005. So money has been spent already in an effort to get the program off the ground. But Senator Dorgan and I felt it was particularly important to try to derail the program now because there is a request pending for $8 million for the next 2 fiscal years.
Senator, how exactly does this work? I mean, let's say I have, $10 and I think that something bad's going to happen in the Middle East. How do I end up taking my $10 and earning a greater return at the end of it?
Well, let me kind of walk you through an example of really how this, could work, and understand that they haven't laid out the details on this. But basically, if you believe an event is going to happen, say the assassination of a certain head of state, then you buy futures on that event. The price of the futures contract goes up as the interest goes up. For instance, you may think early on that Prime Minister X is going to be assassinated, so you buy the futures contracts for 5 cents each. As more people begin to think the person's going to be assassinated, the cost of the contracts could go up to 50 cents. The payoff, if he's assassinated, is $1 per future. So if it comes to pass, then those who bought at 5 cents make 95 cents. Those who bought at 50 cents make 50 cents. Now, we don't have all of the details here, but the bottom line on futures contracts is something that we know a fair amount about, and that is that the losers fund the winners. Now, we're not saying here today that we can say that every trade is going to make an enormous amount of money, but clearly this is morally wrong. It's time for the federal government to draw a bright line and say that as we fight terrorism, let's deal with real events. The 9/11 report shows that we aren't doing that well on the fundamentals. The 9/11 report, as some of you heard from me, indicated that some of our agencies weren't even reading what was in their files about hard evidence that we know. Let's go after that rather than get down this outlandish world of futures markets.
And I think we may have passed out a sheet that's from the website. If you go to your packet, that sheet describes the information on the website about how they envision this would work. We don't know all the details, but we know enough, having gone to the website that is published by DARPA, we know enough about how they intend it to work. So in 3 days, sign-up starts for those who want to be engaged in trading. On October 1st, live trading begins, and they intend to have up to 10,000 traders. But I would just encourage any of you to go to their website and take a look at it.
Did defense officials give you any idea who they expect to be on here, who they want to see? Is it businesses? Is it actual policy analysts? And who did you talk to at DARPA, who is over at Poindexter?
Jim, I've had a briefing with respect to the overall programs that they have been doing, but we are basing today's statement on the website alone. Now, The policy analysis markup website specifically says that DARPA is going to have no access to bidders' identities or their funds. That's their website. So clearly that would give the terrorists a pretty big wall to hide behind and to come on and bid on events that they know are going to happen. And we don't think it's appropriate to give them a chance to do that. Now, DARPA may come back and say that that's not their intent. They want to limit this to experts or something of that nature. That's not what their website says. Their website throws this open.
And let me just make one other point, if I might. You know, look, Jordan has been a pretty consistent ally of ours. How would you feel if you were the king of Jordan and learned that the Department of Defense in the United States is creating an online betting casino of sorts on futures contracts about whether or not you'll be overthrown in the next year? Or at least that's what they use as the example on their website. It seems to me it's horribly offensive. But even more importantly, on the eve of receiving the report on 9/11 and the issues about our intelligence in this country, it seems to me that we ought to be deciding that we want to have the best intelligence capabilities in the world, and that doesn't come from creating this kind of online betting using market system and market-driven intelligence. It just does not improve our intelligence at all, and in my judgment, detracts from what we really ought to be doing.
And if anybody has information that insider information that a terror attack is about to take place, I mean, we think they ought to contact the FBI and our authorities rather than buying thousands of future contracts in order to profit from their knowledge. It's a question of whether you think this makes sense for the government to use its money.
Did DARPA say that there was any restriction on any government official to be a bidder anonymously?
No, on their website, Tom, you see the instructions. We put it in the materials we gave you. But with respect to how you get into this, all you've got to do is pick a username and put your money down. When you look at the website, it's in the materials we gave you. There is no restriction in terms of who can participate.
But other than that, has DARPA indicated that they would preclude any government employee from taking part in this?
All we know is what's on their website, and on their website they say, put your username out there and you're in.
How would it work with your example about if you buy futures on a foreign leader being overthrown? You buy it for 5 cents, maybe it goes up to $1. If the event doesn't occur, there's no payout. It's not like you could resell your own future to someone else.
For every contract, there's going to be a winner and a loser because there's going to be both sides on a contract. We use the word.
Oh, I see.
We use the term futures because that's what's on their website. Futures almost always relates to commodity trading in this country. There's no commodity here. It is simply wagering. It's no more complicated than that. It is wagering on future events in the Middle East.
Losers fund winners. I mean, this is a basic sort of futures, 101, and I guess the first day, if somebody makes a bet that somebody's going to get assassinated, and somebody makes a bet that they're not going to get assassinated, and the person does get assassinated, the loser pays off.
How on earth does this provide intelligence? I mean, I can guess that somebody's going to be. I mean, how does that?
We'll let you talk to them, but I can tell you from my briefing generally with respect to DARPA and why I have fought this program so aggressively over the last few months, and Senator Dorgan and a number of colleagues have helped. They have this notion about the predictive capabilities of intelligence. And at some point you get the sense as you listen to these that they'd almost be open to collectively turning large groups of Americans upside down from the ankles and kind of shaking them to see if something falls out. Well, I guess you could possibly try to go about the intelligence gathering business in that way. We think it's absurd. We think when you look at what happened in 9/11, where you had all of this information on all of these specific individuals, that you ought to go on the basis of real evidence from the real world. I mean, think about the Mohammed Atta situation. This fellow came in contact with scores of government agencies. He tried to learn how to turn an airplane in mid-air and force the plane down at the flight instruction school and got out of the airplane while it was running. there's real evidence to work with. And I think the difference of opinion we have with the crowd up at DARPA is that they have these ideas about markets and predictive capabilities, which are more of fantasy land than the reality of hard intelligence gathering.
You both have left an impression today that the Pentagon, like a real online casino, would pay from its funds the winners. Can you flesh that?
That's not our intention is not
We've used
that.
casino, online betting, gambling.
Right, but
People who
that-
know this stuff know that there's a bank paying.
We don't know where the bank is. What we are saying is this is a Pentagon-initiated and sponsored activity. The policy analysis market coming out of DARPA. We don't know the details. Who would hold the money? Where would be the clearinghouse? We do know that this is created by the Pentagon, and we know that the purpose of buying and selling wagers, in effect, on future acts in the Middle East is nothing more than just that, wagering or gambling. But you'd have to look on the details. You really need to go talk to DARPA, because 3 days from now you can send your name in and begin signing up. And if you're one of the 10,000 that they have on January 1st, I mean, you'll be a trader. So then you can figure out from DARPA exactly what the details are.
Tony, the government is not paying
Be clear,
the
yeah.
actual person who wins. I want to be clear on that. At least we don't have any evidence that the government is doing that. The loser funds the winner, just like any traditional bets. Why? Let's say they start this program, and 2 people bet that the guy's going to get assassinated. One person bets that he doesn't get assassinated. Depending on what happens, the loser funds the winner. What the government is doing is making it possible for this kind of program to go forward, and suffice it to say, I think we all know it is not a difficult thing today to transact market business on the internet. You're going to have to ask them more of the details with respect to how.
How come you didn't make an amendment to the Senator Probst bill like a week and a half ago, where this would have gotten huge?
Well,
Let me answer that exactly. Tony, we did not know all of the details on this. Senator Dorgan and I have been digging into this in great detail over the last few weeks, but I will tell you, I thought I won a very significant victory early in the year when we got the requirement that nothing could be used unless the technology was first approved by the Congress. I thought that was significant. Then, of course, the research went forward, and we got the report illustrating how absurd some of the research was. I wrote and asked for more details on that, including on this program, and I never got a response. So Senator Dorgan and I, as part of our effort to root out waste, then spent a couple of weeks going at the site and looking at the specific comments. Those are all referenced, what page number there are, what site there are, and that's why we're making this push today. We're pushing today because in a few days people can register, and this is pending in a conference. The United States Senate has a chance to do the right thing and to finally put the nail in this program's coffin in the conference.
let me answer it a slightly different way. First of all, a number of us have been concerned about the TIA issue, but Ron has really led the way, and I think had significant successes in trying to expose and then shut down that activity. And we felt when we began work on the Defense Appropriations Bill, because of Ron's work and the work of others, that we're going to have to address this. But then we learned that this was on the internet, this was what DARPA was doing, and we began trying to get some information about it. And when you tell somebody about this, the first thing they say, well, that's not true. You must be at the Onion site. This cannot be accurate. Somebody's fooling you. You went to the Onion, and so it's all very entertaining. But if you go to this site, this is a Defense Department site, DARPA, you go to this site and they will tell you that this is going to be profitable and it's going to be engaging. And I'll hold up this is on their site. Whatever a prospective trader's interest in PAM, involvement in this group prediction process should prove engaging and may prove profitable. And let me make one final point. You ask, what's the potential value? I'll tell you the theory of the people who are pushing this. They say, well, the price of oil, with respect to the future, is made by traders who speculate about what might or might not happen in the future. And if that's the case, if traders come to one center and trade back and forth based on their speculation, why not use that for predicting events of terrorism and assassination and so on, and get the private markets assessment. Let the market system assess the prospect of catastrophic events, particularly focusing on the Middle East, because the website says focusing on the Middle East, even though they've got an example of North Korea. But I'm telling you, I think it is the most Byzantine thing I have ever seen proposed by a federal agency.
Do they say this is action?
One last point. What kind of message does this send to America's children in particular? I mean, you think, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and you see a website that says anybody can become a traitor, and this is what kids walk away thinking the government's response
So
is.
are you looking to do this as among having the conferees actually squelch this? In the
We want to close this program in the conference. The Senate bill would do that. The House bill does not do that. We felt we won a big victory earlier in the year, but apparently DARPA didn't get the message. You know, what I've been struck by, if you look at the TIA program, which now the T stands instead for Total Information, has now been renamed, you know, terrorism information, they scrubbed a lot of stuff off the original website. But the proponents of these ridiculous programs, the hope still seems to beat in the chest, and they don't get the message, and that's why we're doing it.
Well, the first step is to have DARPA shut this down. I mean, it seems to me that when you get the disinfectant that comes from sunlight here, that perhaps the American people will say, are you nuts? What are you doing here? This is taxpayers' money. I mean, our first step is to say to them, look, shut this down. This makes no sense. And if they don't, of course, then we have to find a way in the conference to shut
Do you
it
have confidence in Dr. Poindexter?
I will tell you, I did not discuss anything specific with respect to his boss, Tony Tether, and him being fired. Clearly, when they put him in to run this program, that raised the bar with respect to how the agency ought to conduct itself. Given the fact that that alone should have set off warning lights with respect to privacy rights and this kind of thing, again, you have to say the agency doesn't get the message. I think John Poindexter's boss, Tony Tether, is a responsible person. He's met with me twice, but substantively, they don't get the message. They continue to offer these programs that sort of defy the imagination, and they should have understood if they were going to put somebody like John Poindexter in there to run this program, that really raised the bar with respect to privacy issues, and it's further indication they don't get the message.
Do you know whose brainchild this is and how I got a proposal for $8 million in funding for the next couple years?
Ask those questions of DARPA.
We know that Future Map, though, is run out of the Information Awareness Office. And John Poindexter is in charge of this. This is a program that is part of his bailiwick, and we think it ought to be shut.
All right, just one last question. Do you think it's even legal to protect the identity of somebody who bets on, say, the assassination of a foreign leader? I mean, presumably they're betting on some kind of information. I mean, if somebody bet on the U.S. president being assassinated, do you think the Secret Service would want to talk to them?
DARPA says they're not going to have the information. Maybe somebody else will get it. We don't know that from the website. You should take that up with them. But we do know that DARPA is not going to have access to any of that individual information.
It raises a lot of questions. Will it be regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission? Will it run afoul of state and local gambling laws, future trading laws? I mean, it raises all kinds of questions. But this is a harebrained scheme that is something that ought to be shut down.
So, if I'm to understand correctly, you have gone to DARPA and said, this is crazy. And what is that correct, first of all?
We have not had discussions with the agency about this specific program. I've met with Poindexter's boss on 2 occasions now. I've told them that they have got to get out of Never Never Land and down to the reality of intelligence that focuses on specific individuals and specific threats. After those discussions, I authored the legislation that we've been talking about that says you can't use any of this unless Congress approves it. They've been allowed to continue the research Senator Dorgan and I are saying that just on the basis of the website alone, we believe they aren't getting the message. We want to close this program immediately. We want to close the overall program, which we have a chance to do as part of the conference. That's why we've called you.
And you have a copy of the letter with which we've communicated with DARPA.
Thanks
in your
for
copy.
coming.
Thank you very much.
From this program, we're talking before that terrorist